Welcome to my weekly review. Today is Saturday, August 9th. You're looking at a daily chart of the Nasdaq, which traded at a all-time high on Friday. It took out this high of 21,457 from July 31st and closed at 21,450, but the high was 21,464. The Nasdaq was up 207 points or 0.98% on Friday. And you can see it's after a 27% correction, from peak to trough, 27% correction. We've now had a 45% rally. And you could say that it just started here. Some people tell me, oh, the new bull market just started here at 20,204 when it started making new highs. Okay. If you want to play that, that's fine. I just take it one day at a time. But you can see here on the weekly chart, since this 2022 bear market, we've had, some nice pullbacks along the way. Uh, but this one here is another bear market, the first one since the 2022 interest rate induced bear market. And since we made that low of 14,784, we've had a 45% rally here. So the rally's long in the tooth. It's been about 16 weeks here. And last week it was up 800 points or 0.3, 3.87%. Still looks like it has a lot of fuel in the tank. The last Friday, the index closed. What day was this? The first. Yeah, that was Friday. It closed below the 21 there. You could see it closed a 0.5% below the 21 after reversing on the 31st. That Thursday made a high, that high that I just talked about, 21,457, then pulled back, closed below the 21. So below the 21, I'm a little more cautious because you're going to get something that looks like, this eventually, right? And I don't want to sit through that. So, but on Monday it rallied right back above the 21 and closed 1.3% above the 21. And so we went from yellow cautious to green, a little more aggressive here. And then it paid off as I just showed you. It was up 3.87% last week on the index. All right, so that's the index. I'm going to get to the stocks that are really driving the index. Apple last week, big move here, broke above a downtrend line which on what day was that? Thursday. You take a gold bar to the White House and you get some privileges. Tim Cook knows how to play it. Up 13% last week, and there you can see on the weekly that downtrend had a little 3 weeks tight there and popped 13%. That wasn't the only stock moving though in the Mag 7. Tesla is looking pretty good here. You can see on the weekly chart, it's consolidating within a base, but it also broke above a downtrend line. You can see it better on the daily here. There's your consolidation pattern. But from that 367.71, it definitely broke above a downtrend line on Friday. So this would be one to watch for next week. 338 would be a level. If we could get above that, a little bit of zoom here for Tesla. And the electric vehicle space. I know it's not an electric vehicle company anymore. It's an energy company. It's a robotic company, but consolidating within a base. Tesla looks pretty nice, and like I said, breaking above the downtrend line. That has my interest. Google is another one that looks good. It moved quite a bit last week. You're looking at a daily chart here, popped above that 197.95, but 207.05 is the high, and that's the number I'm looking at here. If it can get above there. You see it had a little 3 weeks type pattern within this cup and handle. There you go. And then popped out of that. But 6.5% move last week. And Google's just, I don't know, it's kind of I shouldn't say an underrated company, but at the Mag 7, it's not talked about all that much. Meta was flat last week, and I kind of like that as it gapped higher following earnings. And now it's just pulling back, forming this little bull wedge type of pattern here, or a pennant, if you will, whatever terminology you use. You could see this big move after earnings. If I could get the track price, there you go. It was a 5% move following earnings last week. It kind of had like a in spirit, like a short stroke pattern, right? It bounced off the moving average, made this big move, and then last week just um, trading tight there on lower volume. Yeah, I like this setup in Meta platforms for next week. So I got to write that down. Meta and Google. Meta and Google are both on my list, and Tesla for next week. So maybe a good week for the Mag 7 again next week. And NVIDIA, of course, if you're talking Mag 7, you got to talk about the largest of these companies. And this one just consolidated in a base for nearly a year, like a base on base pattern. Recently had the 3 weeks tight, and then last week popped out more than 5% out of that 3 weeks tight area. So that's what would be considered like an add-on buy point. I did not buy NVIDIA. I bought AMD instead. I think AMD has the ability to, I don't know, just I think it's got more appreciation from here. I could see AMD doing, a two-bagger from here, 560, and NVIDIA's got to get to like, I don't know, 9 trillion to double. So I just think, I don't know. AMD, I'm going with AMD. I love Lisa Su. How about that? I'm playing favorites. All right. I did have AMD in the ready list last week, and I hope some folks got it. All right. This video, I'm going to do earnings report because earnings do matter. And then I'm going to go through some themes and then, some of my trades from last week. And then we'll end with earnings for next week. I'm going to try to do this quickly. But, I see people say earnings don't matter. Yeah, they do, especially bad earnings. Snap. And I'm just going to, acknowledge the reaction to the earnings. I'm not going to go through earnings report. Hims and Hers had a negative reaction to their earnings. VRTX, we've seen a lot of drug stocks get hammered recently. Maybe yeah, VRTX, time to buy some growth here. And Crocs got hammered. I'm not doing these chronologically. I'm just going through these as I wrote them down. But yeah, Crocs got hammered. Their Hey Dude brand is just it's not working for them. It's an albatross. I bet in closed doors, the CEO would say that was a mistake to buy it. If they just had their Crocs brand, they'd be doing fine. But yeah, Hey Dude is killing it. TGTX reported Monday morning, very negative response to a very positive report. These guys have accelerating sales and earnings growth, but the stock's going the wrong way. One thing about this stock is that it made higher lows for the whole year. You could see, 21, 27, 28, 31, 32, 34. And then the day before earnings, like on Friday, it made a lower low, 34.03, below the prior low, 34.36. And then it gapped down on earnings, something like 20%, 18%, and just making lower lows, of last week. And if you look at the weekly chart on this one, that sure looks like the start of a stage 4 decline to me. Yeah. You don't know, what's going on, because everything looks, rosy. And then, the Wall Street knows something about this company. Something's off here. And yeah, that's very dangerous to be holding that 43% off of its high of 46.48. All right. A couple others, that I was in that I got hammered on. It's a little larger than I thought. Dave, nice report, accelerating sales growth, but the stock's top when their earnings or fundamentals look the best. And this one had a real horrible response to a good earnings report. So maybe this is the end. Or is Jim Morrison saying this is the end? He also sang when the music's over. When the music's over, you turn out the lights. And well, he was singing about something else, but man, you got to turn out the lights on these. This is SEZL. Big move, 24 to 186. It was one of the darlings of the uptrend, and now it's adios, muchachos. Cannot hold on to that stuff. I mean, that is a massive move to the downside, 34% with heavy volume. Sweet greens, these guys were all having competition. Who could be the worst stock on Friday? Cecil, Sweet Green, and then TTD. Like I say, when the music's over, turn out the lights, man. That is this is just telling you, goodbye. Serial gapper now. gap down here, gapped up last time, this time gap down. But you got to play, risk management here in these earnings calls because losing 38% in a day, I mean, that doesn't cut it. I mean, if you're long this stock, you better have some hedge, like some puts or something, because that is just too much pain. Got rejected at the 200, so that's not a surprise, living below the 200 for so darn long. Fortinet, this one kind of surprised me. The cybersecurity names have been selling off recently, and they reported on Wednesday, I think, and then Thursday just took a beating. This thing was hit with the ugly stick, 22% down. So these types of moves to the downside, I mean, they'll destroy your portfolio. So you have to manage risk. I know everybody points to the ones that are going up, and I have plenty of those too. I just want to take you down this negative road before I bring you back on the positive path. Eli Lilly, this thing would never go down, right? The first drug stock to a trillion, but they had a bad trial. The earnings, it doesn't matter. We're just looking at the response. And this thing's been in a downtrend for a long time. You see the 50 crossed the 200 way back, I don't know when was this, December. So this thing's been in a downtrend all year. And I'm not going to say culminating with this move because it could go a lot lower. That to me looks like, yeah, this is confirming this downtrend and confirming a stage 4 decline after this, nice advanced phase. You got your stage 3, and then you can't go any higher. So which way do you go? You go down. It happens to the best of them. Eli Lilly, a great company, but you just it happens to the best of them. So don't sit there and say, "Oh, this thing's coming back. It's a great company," which it is, but the stock's in a downtrend. So they've got to turn it around. And then SMCI. SMCI just, man, slice its 50. And these are big moves on earnings. Gosh, these really crush your portfolio. 18%. That's too much pain. All right. We're out of the pain trade. I'm going to move on because Palantir reported last week. Nice move, just phenomenal earnings and sales growth ramped up on Tuesday. 8% and just continue to rally higher. You could see that 5 EMA just trending higher. And those are the stocks that I'm interested in above the 5 trending higher. And I know that they crash and burn, but if you get these after, an earnings report, you know, it's a little safer than buying them before, right? Because I just showed you all those that got slaughtered. This one's getting support at the 21 prior to the earnings report, just flat, cautious, right, ahead of earnings. Once the print came out, this thing's just ripping every day. I think this is a magnet for 200. Yeah, up 21% last week. So I know a lot of folks like and own Palantir. The other one that I really like was AppLovin. I like this chart set up into the print. They reported a phenomenal quarter, and the thing was selling off after hours. I think it was down to like 355 or 360. I had bought some at that time. I just said, this is a joke. That's a way too good of a report. And then I posted on Twitter that, this is a good report, and I think it's going to reverse, and it did on Thursday, and to the tune of 12%, then followed up Friday with a nice 4% move. This just looks like a breakout to me, a classic breakout from a consolidation period. The old high is in its sights, 525. So yeah, AppLovin, yeah, very strong stock. I think that's one you got to own. If you missed it at the 429, I mean, I don't know, just close your eyes, plug your nose, buy that damn thing. It's going higher. I didn't say that. I didn't recommend to buy anything. I'm just talking to myself. Buy it, you dumbass. Excuse my French. Yeah, so sometimes I have to tell myself that. Geez, this thing's obviously a buy. Just buy it. Okay, you missed the perfect entry or whatever. You got it here. You got to get a little bit bigger chunk on it. Buy a bigger chunk, Marty. Don't be a dummy. And I'm not recommending anybody buy any stocks, but for me, for my purposes, I need to tell myself to buy that stock. You gotta own it. All right, not all drug stocks are bad. This one ramped 18% higher on Friday following its earnings report. ALAB, this is a beauty. We got into this one before the big move. Well, we had on the ready list there at 100, I believe. I forget. But anyway, you can see this consolidation pattern here. Ramped higher and then reported earnings, and their earnings were phenomenal. And this is another one that I think you just gotta, close your eyes, plug your nose, and buy this thing. On a pullback it ramped up on Wednesday following earnings. Yeah, nice 29% move. We'll take that. Then just had an inside day on Friday, excuse me, Thursday, allowing the moving averages to catch up a little bit and then popped again on Friday. So institutions want to own this thing. Yeah, it's got some sponsorship there. And yeah, I think ALAB's another one, beeline to 200. It's in the cards for that one. So at Palantir, AppLovin, ALAB, the earnings are behind it. I think they're going higher. So those are the ones that I want to own. They're trending higher. Dutch Bros, this is one that I do own, have for a long time. Just a real wonky stock. This chart is a mess. Sold off below the 200 ahead of earnings. I just don't think Wall Street gets their story at all, but it's okay. They had phenomenal earnings and ramped 22%. Thought it would have an inside day on Friday, but it pulled back to its 50 on lighter volume. We'll see what happens here. I think it's going higher, but this is the type of stock I believe that you look back in 3 or 4 years and you can say, why didn't I buy it at $66? It's just going to slowly grind higher. If you look at the weekly, you see how choppy that thing is. And then the monthly, just looks like a big cup with a handle pattern. But this is not going to be like an AppLovin or an ALAB. It's not going to ramp and just rip, 20% every week. This one's going to be a slow grind. How about that? For the coffee uh, pun. Yeah, it's been roasted and now it's grinding higher. How about that? All right. NBIS, everybody's in love with this one on X. I'm a little skeptical of it. Um, yeah, it had a nice earnings response. How about that? 19% made it another high on Friday. So that's what you look for, right? Consolidation period here. If you're one of those like Darvis type traders, I'm sure Darvis would probably be buying this. It's 55, 56 one day, and the next day you look up and it's up 68. That's a nice jump. So usually stocks when they jump like that, they trend higher. Maybe allow that green line to catch up, but that's a nice breakout from that box. Celsius, this is one that was a darling and then it sold off, and now it's really having a good year here in 2025. And you could see this, big stage 4 decline, right? This is the Weinstein, stages, right? There's your stage 2, there's your stage 3, can't make any more highs, and then it just sells off. Stocks do this. And now it's in this stage 2 advance phase. So Celsius having a good year, a nice response to their earnings report. Groupon, not a stock that I own, just acknowledging the big move on Thursday. And then what happened on Friday? Woohoo! Came back to its 50. So I'm making a video of these power earnings gaps. I only want to use 10 stocks. And this one was a candidate, but now it's not. And you can see why. Back to the 50, much like Dutch Bros. HNGE, this one is really intriguing to me. It's got, strong sales growth, accelerating sales growth. This looks like a one-off here, charge $7.38 in earnings, but pulled back to its moving average on Friday. So it ramped on Wednesday, 26%, had an inside day on Thursday, and just pulled back to its 5 on Friday. One that I'm definitely watching going forward. VSAT, this is one of the top stocks and one of the top groups, which I'm going to get to in a minute on my themes, but had a nice move and then, just pull back inside day Thursday, pull back on Friday. AXON, these guys are sneaky good. They always report strong quarters. Stock responds. Nice 16% move there. Inside day, just kind of waiting for the moving average to catch up. And on Friday, it did. It closed right at its 5 or just a tick above it. So Axon one to watch for next week as well. ZETA, everybody's in love with this one. You know, they had some accounting issues, which caused for the sell-off. Consolidated in this base, sold off 4%, but just allowing the moving averages to catch up after a 28% move. Those are big moves, folks. You don't think earnings matter. These moves are just hellacious. Uh, Arista Networks, they had that 5-for-1 stock split, kind of put more supply in the mix. Wow. Wow, that's a lot of the shares. I haven't looked at that in a while, but didn't seem to bother it on Wednesday, following the earnings report. Nice 17% move and just consolidating gains here. Going sideways is good after a move like that. What else do we have? EXTR. Kind of interested in this one. I have some friends who work there. It made this big move, had this inside day. I thought it might pull back to, that 19 area, allow that moving average to catch up. But that one looks good. If you look at the weekly, just emerging from this, stage one base. And, this looks like a breakout in a stage two, up 15% last week. So, gosh, there's just a lot of them I still have to get to. XMTR, nice breakout. Now just pulling back to the moving averages. And then some more. Now, I'm going to go through these quickly. PSIX on Friday, up 13%. And then I have some drug stocks. Drug stocks are not all that bad. This one moved 26%, now allowing the moving averages to catch up. That's RNA is the ticker symbol. And then Wriggle, this one's got a wiggle. Wriggle's going to wiggle. It's going to wiggle higher. Nice breakout from a consolidation pattern there. This cup, I guess you'd call it cup or just consolidation. 23% move, making new highs. We like new highs. So that one's definitely one to watch. And then SUPN, I believe they're from Boston. Nice gap higher, but still consolidating within a base if we look here. Nope, Rockville, Maryland. I'm wrong again. Often wrong, never in doubt. But yeah, nice 16% move and just trying to break out of this base here. So that's another one to watch in if you like drugs. And then Wayfair, retailer, nice move, pulling back, allowing the moving averages to catch up. And then I'm going to go to one of my favorite groups. This is the heavy construction group. Sterling, one of the, I don't know what you want to call it, one of the top performing stocks in 2025. This thing's been a monster. How much is it up the last year? Yep, nearly 200%. So, yeah, Sterling, fantastic. PRIM reported. Nice move higher. So you see, I have my work cut out for me trying to pick these top 10 gap ups on earnings. TPC is a Tudor Perini. You could look at the weekly here. These things look like they might be climaxing. Um, we'll see. Speaking of which, Will and Dan. Yeah, that to me looks like how many weeks in a row has it been up? But the highest volume ever. Getting a little bit El Stretcho here, as our friend Malibu likes to say. Yeah, that's looking very climactic. All right. And then a couple more, man. BWXT, nice gap up on earnings and just goes sideways. That's what you want to see. This is the electrical power equipment group, with Vertiv. These ones have been doing really well. And NVT is another one that I like in this group that I had put on my power earnings gap recently, just gapped up and just allows the moving averages to catch up. So that would be one that I would be watching for next week as well. What else do we have? Oh, BL. This is one that was ramping. This is one of these like I think electric buses or whatever out of Macon, Georgia. Famous for the Allman Brother Band. But this one's still consolidating within a base. If I go to the weekly, you could see, it's just a big move here from the lows. What did it go from 8 to 60 and then consolidating in a base last week, popped 28%. Yeah, big move on earnings. And so it's another one, that I like that the structure of this chart. You can see the pullback prior to the the earnings report, these little wedges, people are cautious ahead of earnings, but it's still consolidating within a base. It's not crazy broken out yet. So maybe above $60. It'll be winner, winner, chicken dinner. And the last one, I believe, is LASR. We've seen a lot of these. I should be pointing them out. These high tide flags, there's a lot of them. Maybe I'll do a video just on high tide flags because there's a lot of them. Made this big move, had this flag last week, broke out on earnings, 30% move. Electronic parts. Yeah, that's a nice move. All right, that's it for that section. I got to get to some of the leading themes in the market. Energy is the top performing market. GEV has just been on a ripper. And I could just go through all these in the last year. You go to OKLO and then you go to LEU, not Leo. Yeah, I mean, these are just massive winners in the last year. Yeah, you're looking at 3, 4, 600, 900%. And GEV has been one of the stronger ones. I know people, God, they're really spoiled and complacent. What's the matter with GEV? It's not ramping up. Well, it's been up a lot and it's forming this little wedge pattern. Maybe it'll come back to the 21 like it did here, but come on, folks. I mean, these things have been up so much. Give them a little bit of a break. The other group is gold, GFI, just ramping last week. I go to the weekly charts, 22% move in a gold stock. That's pretty insane. AU was up 17%. And once again, if I go to the comparison chart and I put some of these tickers in here, it's just crazy how much some of these have moved. AEM, which is one of my favorites, WPM, these Canadian miners, RGLD. Uh, I mean, these are big moves, very consistent, outperforming the index. And there's a nice breakout for AU last week. And those are big move for gold stocks. They're kind of, a little slower movers, but man, this one had a nice week last week, pulled back Friday, allowing that 5 to catch up. So AU looks pretty good to me. Another group that I like a lot is the electrical contracting manufacturing group. CLS, just been a massive ripper. Once again, just grinding higher. Sanmina, another one in this group, just looking phenomenal. And then TTMI, right? Who else do I have here? Oh no, yeah, that was up nicely, but the Jabal is another big winner here, and it looks like it's going sideways, consolidating here. Look at that. Earnings on September 25th had these little David Ryan ants here, now going sideways. That looks good. That could be on my ready list next week as well. So even though we've had this big rally, there's still stocks setting up with different patterns, 3 weeks tide or high tide flags. So it's something to look for. Different kind of market. So I'm not really looking for cup with handles. I'm looking for stocks that have moved, that have kind of consolidated, like I mentioned earlier with Meta, big move, now consolidating, kind of like that. All right. That's it for the groups. A couple trades I made last week. DHI, kind of like this one, kind of tethered to interest rates, which allegedly are coming down. But bought some calls on this one because I think, if the Federal Reserve does lower rates, and I believe they will, I think these things have kind of bottomed. And I'm not very good at picking bottoms. I'll be the first to admit that. But to me, it looks like it wants higher. So that one, I put on my ready list last week. Another winner that I had was Robinhood. Definitely broke above this downtrend line from 113. And I know, it only consolidated for 3 weeks, made that high at 113.44 3 Fridays ago and then rallied through it on yesterday. But yeah, broke above. So we put this on our ready list, I think Wednesday or Thursday. Nice gentle pullback to the 21, found support at 21. And this is a leading stock. This is one that you want to be in. I want to be in. I'm not suggesting anybody buy anything, but it's one that I want to be in. I can always speak for myself. AMD put this one on the ready list following this earnings report. Solid earnings, sold off to the 21. This stock's in demand. It's being bought. So when it pulls back to the 21 like that, that's a buy. It found support. So we put that one on the ready list last week. It was flat on the week. I still think it's going higher. I'd shown that chart before. What other one? Oh, GFI, I showed that one earlier. Yeah, I mean, phenomenal move. We put that one on the ready list and it popped. Sometimes you get lucky, but I did have some losers. ASTS, and I gotta warn you, when I have losers like this, they usually pop the next week. But they have earnings here on Monday, so sometimes I'm just early, or sometimes I'm just flat out wrong. But oftentimes I've noticed, like I put it on the right of this, it failed miserably. ASTS was down 11% last week, loser. But it'll probably pop 20% next week. Carvana. Another one that I put on, but it's just pulling back to the 21. Once again, probably a week too early, down 5%. This thing's just consolidating after a big move like you want to see. It did have that little 3 weeks type pattern in there. Yeah. So I still like Carvana, although last week it was a loser. And ESLT, another loser. It was a winner. This thing was ramping, broke out, and then up, pull back. You know why? Well, they have report earnings Wednesday. All right, that's it. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up, except in honor of the great Steve Jobs. One more thing. We have earnings next week, a couple that I'm looking forward to on Monday before the market opens. Monday reports on Monday. That's always nice. Barrick Mining, a gold stock. They recently sold some properties, and I don't know. This is just an uptrend. That's a type of stock, as a swing trader that I want to own, the ones that are trending higher. And then FNV, this is another one, a little bit of a laggard in the mining group, but they report Monday before the open. And then after the market closes, we have OKLO and the aforementioned ASTS reports. So I'm thinking that they're going to have a positive response, probably to some cruddy earnings, but it'll probably be a positive response. Circle reports Tuesday morning. SE, this is one that's been a Wall Street darling. They report early. This is a Singapore company. And another one that reports super early is On Holdings. They make me get up out of bed uh, because this is a Switzerland company. So they report super early, those two. CoreWeave reports on Tuesday after the bell. This thing made that low of 100. This is one to watch. I've been bagging on this one because it made that high, 187, now sold off to 100. But this one's reversed and trending higher. This would not surprise me to trade above the 50 next week. We'll see what they have to say. And then Kava, this is one that was really in Wall Street darling, and now it's just retail restaurant business is super tough. And speaking of which, Brinker reports um, Wednesday morning, pull back to the 200. Don't like that. And then ESLT, the aforementioned ESLT, Elbit Systems, they report Wednesday before the bell. Cisco Systems, this used to be in the 90s, a little go-go stock. Man, this thing's up to 71. I hope they report killer earnings and trade above 80. I have a lot of friends who work there and said they're going to retire at 80, so I'll be able to text them or call them and say, hey, it's time to retire. I hope so for them. DLO reports after the close on Thursday, and then, Wednesday, and then Thursday morning, John Deere, and then Birkenstock, one of the oldest companies, a UK company. They've been making sandals for years and years and years. They report on Thursday before the bell, and then after the close, Applied Materials, TMC, the metals company, and then Inu, a Brazil bank company. And then the last one I have is SanDisk, which was recently spun off, not too long ago. So they report. This is a computer data storage company. And that's it for me. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up. Busy week next week.